So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. My name's Cynthia, and over this month we're going to explore a statement that really piqued my interest when I was wondering what to talk about by Lama Yeshe, who is on the right-hand side over there. And his statement is, he says that every problem on earth comes from attachment, and acting under the influence of attachment causes us suffering and causes us to create negative actions. And I thought that's a pretty wild statement. Every problem on earth comes from attachment. Now, I believe him. So I wanted to explore that a little bit further. So I'm going to be talking about, over this month, Monday nights, attachment to objects and people, attachment to our image and attachment to outcomes, our projections, unpicking what's going on with our attachments, and strategies to mitigate attachment, which equanimity, and the big one, letting go of our ego, our attachments and our delusions. I once asked a monk, Venerable Thupten Gyatso, who's, I think he's on a retreat now in Kangaroo Island, but he was based in Bendigo, when I first came into Buddhism, why do all the lamas look so happy? And he said, he thought about it and he said, letting go. They let go. So that'll be the finale of the month. But I'll also talk a bit about meditation, because intellectual knowledge is not enough. Meditation deepens any understanding that we've gained, or at least prepares the mind to be in a better state to help us understand what we're hearing. But first, an introduction to the Monday night series of teachings. They've been going on for decades. So the strength of these Monday nights, I think, is that the teachers come from such diverse backgrounds. So they hear a lot of the same teachings, but they process them from different perspectives and in a more modern context. So we have teachers who are engineers, doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, small business owners, accountants, artists, office workers and academics, and probably other professions I'm not even aware of. I used to be a teacher. I ended up at St Leonard's down the road, actually. But then I worked in IT, then competitive intelligence, then in media, and a lot of other things in between. So I first started coming to TI about 30 years ago after a guy sitting next to me at the former State Electricity Commission lent me a book on reincarnation just before I went trekking in Nepal. So after that trek, I went to hear Lama Zopa, he'd be on the left over there, teaching the November course at the monastery there, Kopan Monastery. And then I came here. So we owe a debt of gratitude to all the hippies that went on the hippie trail in India and Kopan, and then they all came back to their own countries and set up centres. Okay, so I've got a few books here. So different people with different experiences come and teach, come and talk and facilitate the Monday nights, and a lot of them are encapsulated in here, in what I call the Monday night textbook, Meditation for Modern Minds. So it basically is the teachings as they are here, but of course we edit them from oral to reading, so that's really interesting as well. So Monday nights, of course, are a great introduction to Buddhist concepts and meditation, but if you haven't already, I encourage you to try dipping into Tuesday and Wednesday nights to listen to our resident Geshis teach, because that's where the real wisdom happens. They've got the experience, they've done all the deep meditations, they've done the retreats. I think the longest retreat I've done is a month, but that's a guided retreat with Lama Zopa as opposed to a 3-year retreat. All right, so let's start with a breathing meditation to get our minds settled. So we typically concentrate on the breath because it's a neutral object and it's easy to use and we always have it with us. Okay. All right. So this meditation is based on, and I'm sure a lot of other Monday night teachers have used it, Kathleen MacDonald's How to Meditate book. So it's a really great book, and it covers, it's old, but it covers all the basic principles. Okay. She says that the main activity used in breathing meditations is mindfulness. the ability of the mind to keep attention focused on whatever it is doing without wandering off onto other objects. But how many people have tried meditating at home? Yeah, a few? Okay, so one of the main things, difficulties you have, can anyone tell me any obstacles or difficulties they might have? Distractions, yeah. The shopping list all of a sudden comes to mind, or whatever. So thoughts naturally come into your mind. That's just natural. That's what the mind does, right? So, and that's okay. Just relax. If you get sort of uptight about it, then it sort of defeats the whole purpose. So just relax and bring your mind back onto the breath, if that's what you're meditating on. Okay, so sit now with a straight back, whether you're sitting or cross-legged. And they often say as if the vertebrae were like a pile of coins. So relax your body with the head slightly bent forward. You hold your hands loosely on your lap, the right hand on top of the left, palms upward, tips of the thumbs gently touching to form a triangle. Now you can have your eyes slightly open so you don't drop off to sleep, but a lot of people like them closed because it can be more comfortable. It's personal preference. Often in Buddhism we think of motivation while we're doing something, like even if you're an athlete, you're motivated. In the corporate world you have a motivation. So bring to mind your motivation for doing this meditation. Maybe it's you want a more focused and calm mind. So we'll be counting our breaths. One full in and out breath would be one count. Breathe normally and quietly. There's no need to force the breath, so you feel it rather than listen to it. So you can focus on the sensation of the breath a few ways, either near the tip of your nose as it enters your nostrils, or as it goes across your upper lip, or as the lungs or abdomen rise and fall. So pick one and stick with it for the duration of this meditation. So let's do 3 cycles, where one cycle is 7 breaths. So count 7 breaths and do it again. Let's just start that now. If any thoughts arise, don't react to them. Just bring your mind back onto the breath. Okay, gently get your mind back into the room and open your eyes. So also in Buddhism we usually dedicate any positive energy that we've created here by meditating, perhaps to fulfilling the aim you had when you started. So maybe along the lines of, I dedicate any positive energy I've created to a calm and peaceful mind for everyone, including myself, but whatever. One of the apps I use for meditating talks about flexing the getting the mind back to the breath muscle. So you want to get the mind back to the breath when your mind starts to wander. So you've got to flex that muscle. I think the more that you do that, eventually you won't be bothered or distracted by your thoughts. And I suppose the key is not being bothered by them. Just let them. Someone said you can let them float off like a cloud or something like that, whatever sort of works. So are there any comments or questions about the meditation you did? I'll talk about establishing a meditation practice later on, but if did anyone have any thoughts or questions? Okay, so back to attachment. I'll start off with just a little bit of theory and then I'll give some examples. So attachment in the Buddhist sense is where we, or actually our deluded mind, projects extra positive qualities onto things, whether it be objects or people, which makes them more appealing than they really are. And then we minimise any negative aspects. I mean, there's nothing wrong with enjoying and having things, but it's the confused way we grasp onto the pleasures they bring that makes us suffer. So we're always trying to change the world around us rather than understanding it's our own attachment, a lot of the time, created internally that we have to change. So I'll begin with attachment to objects. Attachment to people we'll get to, that's a bit more subtle. But I'll start off, I was thinking of cars actually, because a lot of people love their cars, but I don't really have a flash car, but I'll start off with my favourite imaginary car. I know that I don't see a beautiful blue Carmen gear for what it really is. It's just a car. It's technically just a piece of metal that would get us from A to B. But I have these fantasies, I think, of driving one through Europe, looking cool with my cool car, stopping at all these beautiful places and blah, 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 creating a glossy movie-like story around the whole experience. And don't even get me started on creating my own wardrobe, with it as well. So it's just one example of the way that we can create a storyline or a narrative that is removed from reality. But chocolate is my big attachment. Someone said talk about what I know, but chocolate is my big attachment. Now that it's winter, I'm attached to my nice comfy couch in my nice comfy warm lounge room, binge watching The Marvellous Mrs. Maisel on TV and eating Tim Tams, the double chocolate coated ones. I've definitely labelled that as good, but I'm ignoring the negatives, the binge watching and the too many Tim Tams. The Tim Tams, I definitely project more positive qualities onto them than are really there. Some people just see them as an ordinary biscuit, so I don't get that, but some people see it as an ordinary biscuit, but I love them, the chocolate, the double chocolate, the way they look, yummity yum yum. Okay, so they make me feel good and guilty, but I suppress that. And in my mind, they do look delicious, and I think I'll feel so happy and satisfied once I taste their deliciousness. I'm definitely overvaluing these Tim Tams and certainly minimising the negative aspects. They make me gain weight, too much sugar is unhealthy, and if I have too many, I get sick. And if I don't have enough, I might get bad-tempered. Take my Tim Tams away and see what happens. It's not happiness for anybody. So chasing happiness through Tim Tams is not going to work. And one is never enough. Not enough. It's a fleeting pleasure. The pleasure stops when you stop eating them. That's why I always go back to the chocolate box and get another one. There's a craving for more. I'd keep eating them if I didn't get sick. I mean, that's true, I'm not making this up. I would just keep eating. That pleasure can soon turn to suffering. I mean, there may be some addiction here, but there is definitely attachment in there as well, right? There's definitely attachment in there. Okay, there is a great book by Lama Yeshe called When the Chocolate Runs Out. Right? I'm not the only one, right? And on the back cover, it reads, "As long as I have chocolate, I'll be happy." I don't want to read any further than that. I really don't. But how will you be happy when the chocolate runs out? It's a great little book exploring all about attachment. Also available in the bookshop. He goes on to say in here that we're unhappy, actually not because the chocolate runs out, but it's our fixed ideas and our misunderstanding on the nature of chocolate that's making us unhappy. He further says that chocolate comes, chocolate goes. It's impermanent. Ultimately, you can't rely on chocolate to be happy, right? That's the kicker. I think I have a kindred spirit over there. Okay, so it's a transient pleasure. That's why we keep on eating, or that's why I keep on eating it. I get the pleasure out of it. I want more, I want more. And like I said, I know I have a chocolate box at home that needs constant replenishing. I know I'm attached to chocolate. It's almost never enough. Yeah, I've just said this and I always want more. Of course, I eat it. I'm going to keep on eating it even after tonight. And I'm going to keep on enjoying it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Eat it, enjoy it, that's fine. But I can't rely on chocolate to be happy because it won't always be there and it's never enough. I mean, you can substitute chocolate for a car, for a house, for a job, right? Never enough. It's not the best sort of happiness. A friend of mine has no attachment to chocolate at all. Just a bit of dark chocolate is enough for her. But she's attached to her jewellery, right? I mean, I've got a few pieces myself I really love. And she asked me, what's wrong with being attached to my jewellery? It's meaningful for me. And I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it is unfortunate. If you lose something you're attached to, you're going to be upset. If you damage something you're attached to, you're going to be upset. If you're attached to it, if you're not attached to it, you won't be that upset. Right? So when she says that her jewellery is meaningful to her, or when a lot of people say that, it could be their grandma's jewellery or something like that, and it's meaningful for them but not to anybody else. So it's not inherently fantastic. It's just that that's what they've made out. So it's useful to look at the meaning you ascribe onto an object. The jewellery doesn't make you happy. It's what you're projecting onto it that is giving you the pleasure, whatever that might be. For me, I've got a lot of jewellery and I don't think I'm really all that attached to it. Maybe a couple of pieces from my mother's, but I have to really think about that, you know. Am I really attached to that? I guess you can tell if you're attached to something if you lose it, you know, or if you can just turn your back on it, or if you just give it to somebody without attachment. If you can't do that, then there is probably some attachment there. And I think intellectually, if you understand that, it does sort of help if you do lose it. So you can still like a thing and get pleasure from a thing without being attached to it. So in our house we have a saying, it's just a thing. If one of us breaks something and gets upset about it, you know, we just say it's just a thing. And actually that really does dissipate the upset because we realise what's going on. So when we separate the emotion, I mean, we're emotional beings, right? We're not all like this. Or you may be, you might be, I've got absolutely no idea, but I know I'm not. So we're going to have emotional attachments. The idea is to try to reduce them and try to understand it so it doesn't hurt as much. So when we separate the emotion or the storyline that we build around an object from the actual object itself, then it's not as upsetting. We need to find lasting happiness elsewhere. We can't just rely on a fabulous car, fabulous clothes, anyway, fabulous clothes, fabulous house or fabulous jewellery, all external stuff, right? We and I need to stop looking outward for lasting happiness and start looking inward, like deeply inward. That's where the happiness is. It's not out there. It can't be. It's too impermanent. It's too unreliable. We need to remember that attachment is a state of mind. It's a deluded state of mind. So those extra qualities that we project onto things come from our deluded mind. We project onto an object and convince ourselves it makes us happy. The Tim Tam doesn't exist the way I think it does. There is no inherent yumminess in a Tim Tam because not everyone thinks it's delicious. The Tim Tam definitely gives pleasure to me, but not to everyone. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in eating them, but I just need to know that they do not give me a long-lasting, deep joy and happiness. I do not want to rely on eating Tim Tams to make me happy. That is a mistake. We have to keep remembering and meditating on this to keep chipping away at our deluded view. Otherwise, I go back to stuffing my face with chocolate, chasing happiness, unreliable happiness. It's unreliable. If eating chocolate was the path to happiness, I'd be enlightened by now. So, I'm sure they didn't get to be enlightened by eating chocolate. Lama Yeshe says the psychology of attachment is overestimation. It is an unrealistic attitude. That's why we're suffering. Understanding the things that we're attached to will change and eventually disappear helps us to realise it's pointless to be attached to them. Now there's another great book. I think it's one of the free ones, and I think there's some copies left. It's another Lama Yeshe book. He spoke a lot about attachment, ego attachment and liberation, and he has a story about how a monk dealt with attachment. I'll just quickly read that. So this is Lama Yeshe speaking. This reminds me of a story from old Tibet. When monks were served food in the monasteries, they'd sit in long straight lines and the servers would pass up and down the line, doling out the food. They'd start with the senior monks and gradually move down to the junior ones. On one occasion, some delicious yogurt had been offered to the monastery, and Geshe Ben, who was there, he mentioned him earlier, sitting down the line a bit. As the yogurt was being sloshed loudly into the bowls of the monks up ahead of him, he was sitting there worrying. They're giving those monks too much. There won't be any left for me. Suddenly he became aware of what was going on in his mind. So he meditated on how powerful attachment is and how it creates fantasies that have nothing to do with reality. Then he turned his bowl upside down. When the server reached his place, Geshe Ben said, "No thanks, I've already had mine." In this way, he punished his selfish ego and attachment for obsessing over the food that was being served. This is a good example of how to practice an antidote to attachment. And that really stayed with me because I remembered this story when I was in Singapore recently to hear His Eminence Ganden Trippa. He's one of the senior monk lama, 90-something years old. He was amazing. I went out of curiosity and he was fantastic. And during an empowerment, some special water was being poured out to people, so you just receive it. And it was taking so long, it looked like I might miss out. I was getting a bit worried and a bit panicky, a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out on this special blessed water by this amazing lama. But then I immediately told myself off, probably because I read this. Perhaps not the kindest way to treat myself, but I told myself off and thought, well, if I miss out, I miss out. There's nothing I can do about it. And I might as well have a calm mind to receive the empowerment rather than an impatient fear of missing out one. Interestingly, and without word of a lie, as soon as I thought that, a server came right up to me and I got some of the water. I'm not saying that that's always going to be the case, but in this case it worked. But the thing is, there was nothing I could do about it anyway. You know, I mean, I could have embarrassed myself, gone up there and insisted on getting some, but that's really missing the whole point of being there and trying to be calm and a more patient person. Okay, so that's objects. I mean, you could go on forever about objects. I've got to keep an eye on the time. Attachment to people is a bit more subtle. So remembering that attachment in the Buddhist sense overvalues the positive aspects of something and ignores or minimises the negative. So sometimes we confuse attachment with love. Okay, love's actually a very vague term. In the Western world, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There's movie love, all sorts of love. Often, attachment and love is mixed together, so it's hard to separate out the two. So broadly speaking, attachment is, what can that person do for me? And love is, what can I do for that person? You're thinking of them rather than yourself all the time. Lama Yeshe talks about parents. He says attachment makes you think, they're my parents, they have to look after me. Instead of thinking to help them because you love them, you grasp with expectation. So sometimes we get on better with strangers than our own family. And siblings. Okay, when the parent gives them something and not you. I still remember when my brother got a big blue teddy bear and I already had a big panda, and I thought, I'm the only one who gets a panda around here. Only one who gets a big bear, and then he gets a big bear. So that was really, I'm trying to be really nice to him because of that thought. So are you jealous? Are you happy for your sibling because they received a present and you didn't? So falling in love is a good example of attachment being present. We watch too many movies, we get a ridiculous view of what love is about, with ridiculous expectations attached to that. So we like a person, we build up a narrative around them, we want to be with them, we think they'll make us happy, sometimes even before we've said hello. But if we make the mistake of overestimating their positive qualities, then we will eventually become disappointed. I'm sure we can all think of examples of that. So attachment, caring more about me than them, leads to unrealistic expectations, which are impossible to live up to. And these huge expectations are not fair on them either. Also, people change. They may not continue to be the person you thought they were or want them to be. If you're attached to that idea, then when they change, you will suffer. So I've had girlfriends on my doorstep crying about some boyfriend. He doesn't bring me flowers anymore. He doesn't do this or that for me anymore. He doesn't make me happy anymore. And even before I found Buddhism, I used to ask, but what have you been doing for him lately? Do you still grab his favourite loaf of bread on the way home from work? Do you still put in an effort? Are you thinking about making him happy? So true love wants others to be happy, but it's got to be balanced. You know, Buddhism, the middle way. You don't want to be a doormat. Boundaries are good. Other people's attachment to their people's attachment to their partner might be fuzzy, or might fuzzy the boundaries. Right? Your attachment might fuzz the boundaries for you, healthy boundaries that might fuzz those, and lead you to say yes to requests that perhaps you shouldn't. Otherwise, that person might not like you anymore, or they might leave you. The same with friendships. Someone I used to know says to have a friend you need to be a friend. So basically, rather than just thinking about what they can do for you, what can you do to them? All right. So not being attached doesn't mean you can't be close to someone. Okay? I had some people around the other day and they were saying, oh yeah, what's up? So I told them what was up, and they said, oh, attachment, and talking about it. And then they're saying, oh, that's ridiculous, you know. I'm close to, my children, I'm close to my husband, I'm close to my friends. And I'm saying, well, that's not what attachment is. So I started talking about what I'm talking about here a little bit. But it doesn't mean you can't be close to people. The attachment is the extra layer of narrative or storyline on top of the situation. You can act out of love and compassion rather than attachment. So you can still love people, you can still be compassionate for them. Attachment is a dysfunctional way of operating. So once the attachment goes or is reduced, then the true love will shine through. So remember, the attachment is a deluded state of mind. So once that gets cleaned up a little bit and there's a bit more understanding of the reality of what's going on, the love has a chance to shine through. Venerable Gyatso, the monk I mentioned before, who's on Kangaroo Island doing a retreat, there's an e-book of his, The Perfect Mirror, and he says, attachment is not happiness. It is an agitated, unhappy state of mind that believes if we do not get what we want, then we cannot be happy. He also says, and this is a capsule of a Buddhist strategy to minimise attachment to humans we think are beautiful. So this is what he said. When I was a medical student, spending many hours each day dissecting human corpses, I was dismayed to realise that beautiful girls were beginning to appear as walking skeletons. Beneath the skin that beckoned to be touched, I saw yellow nodules of fat, red muscles and white bones that dissipated my desire. Okay, so that segues quite neatly into the next meditation. Again, from the Kathleen MacDonald book, How to Meditate. And that'll show, hopefully, talks about the thoughts and storyline versus reality. So it's just a brief little analytical meditation. So again, sit up straight. I think all the people on a Monday night talk about that's the most important thing, to have the straight back. Think of the line of coins. But be relaxed. Okay, have your eyes slightly open or closed if that's more comfortable. So think of a beautiful, attractive person, either one you know or a movie star or an athlete. What do you find so attractive about them? Mentally penetrate the surface and examine what lies beneath the skin. So the flesh, the bones, the organs, the intestines, all that blood and pus. What's so attractive here? Imagine the person old and wrinkled. Where is the beautiful body now? Okay, so that was a very brief one. So you can gently open your eyes and let your mind come back into the room. So that's a typical, oft-used little Buddhist analytical meditation or even thought process when you think that you're going down that spiral of, I love him, he's beautiful, I want him. Blue blonde hair, surfer. I grew up by the beach, all these surfers, better than Tim Tams. And you think, if I only had thought of these meditations, going through and what's really lies beneath. It's all superficial. It's just a little bit of packaging on the outside. Scrape it all back and it's all just gunky blood and pus and bones and gunk in there. And also, as we all know, there's more to a person than the outside packaging. Okay, so Kathleen MacDonald says the point of that exercise isn't to get us to dislike the person, but rather to see how attachment distorts our perception and exaggerates the qualities of a person. We simply don't see the reality. Okay, I used to build up this narrative about the surfers. Not true. And I remember one guy really, he was a few years older than me, and I thought he was so cool. And I met him about 20 years later at a party, not cool. So really interesting, the story that you build up. And I didn't really even know him. It was just in the same community that I used to hang out in. So we simply don't see the reality. So that little analysis brings us down to earth. So grounding us, rather than going on a dramatic tangent, and helps us penetrate below the surface of our sort of glossy fantasy image. I mean, social media doesn't help either. Glossy fantasy images everywhere. It's a trap. Okay, to sum up, attachment is a deluded state of mind. But it's in the mind, so this means the place that we can address our problems is also in the mind. So we're looking inward. Okay, the important thing, I think, to remember is that we can have all this stuff and have friends and relationships and enjoy it all. Everything. But we really do need to pick apart and understand how they exist and what we project onto them. The storyline we create around everything isn't real. And it's good to understand the possible problems that this can create. It's like the saying, which I'm paraphrasing, when something's good, it's very good, but when it's bad, it's horrible. So you're not giving up the object. You don't have to give anything up. You're giving up the attachment to the object. So even starting to consider if there's any grasping and self-serving attitude on your part is like a start at sort of unpicking the reality of situation. So I'll talk more about that next week. Before we get on to questions, I used to be a teacher, so I'm giving you a little bit of homework. So easy homework. So the meditation is the really important part. You can read all you like, you can listen to teachings all you like, or talks, and that's great. It's great to have an intellectual understanding of things. But to really get anywhere, the meditation really helps for it to sink in. And I think it's incredibly important, the meditation side of things. So I'd like you to meditate for 1 to 5 minutes every day, just 1 minute even. 5 minutes would be great. Just every day, find a nice place, typically in the morning, and stick to it. You could do it just before you go to sleep. And they do say it's best to meditate in short sessions and every day so you can build up a habit. And they say that I think it's 21 days or 25 days. If you do something, then it becomes a habit. So regular meditation will transform your mind, I believe. So if you can, find a nice place to sit and to set yourself up, either on a chair or with cushions, candles or incense, a picture. We have some free photos of our geshis in the bookshop, or just an inspirational photo of something. If it helps, if it just makes a place nice for you. I mean, put curtains, put fabric, something that's nice, whatever suits, lots and lots of cushions. And get something nice, and it's good to have the hips forward a little bit, and that helps too. I should have mentioned that before. So have a nice place that you can go to, but if you can't, if it's the lounge room table or the kitchen table or whatever, it's what it is. Same time every day is good. That's part of the habit. Geshe Doga told me to meditate as soon as I got up, which I don't do, but I should, of course. And when I do, I get a good run. Because there are a lot of obstacles, Emails need to be read, things need to be cleaned, but they really don't. They can wait 5 minutes. Everything can wait 5 minutes, or 99% of things can wait 1 minute. So it's just our mind not wanting to do it. So, if you've got a nice place to sit, you're more likely to come back and meditate the next day. So what I'd like you to do, obviously, there's more. So try to meditate every day for a minute, but notice how you feel just before you meditate, and then again when you've finished, if you remember. And then after the week, it'll be interesting to see if you feel any better. Some people with just one session of meditation, they say, "Oh, that was really good. I feel so much more calm." I used to teach kids on a movie set, and they'd be climbing up the walls before I gave them back to their parents. So I'd make them all lie down or sit and we'd just do some breathing meditation. And sometimes if the parents were early, they'd come and sit as well. And it just made such a difference. And some of the parents said, wow, that feels really good. So some people can feel the benefit after one session. So it'd be interesting to see how you feel after doing it for the next 7 nights. I mean, hopefully you can. I mean, I'm not going to check up on you. So just see how it goes. I mean, I'll ask you how you went, if anybody did it. Just an interesting experiment. I mean, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do it, I mean, sometimes I try to do it just before I go to bed, but I'm going to try to do it first thing in the morning. I think that's I saw a reel on David Bowie. He said that he tries to get up, or he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning no matter what, even if he was having a late session, you know, with songs or whatever, or recording, and he would get up at 6 without fail. And with his lifestyle, he said that was sometimes pretty tough, because the energy and the light in the morning as the day breaks was much better than the darkness of the twilight hours for him. And I think there's something in that. Even though I'm a night person, I prefer the evening. I like to go to bed at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning and get up at 9. But the times when I have had to get up early in the morning, it's been really interesting, the effect that the early daylight has, a more positive effect. So morning is probably better. Okay, so I'm going to join in the experiment and see how we go. Also try to think of the obstacles that get in your way. I mean, I'm saying, was there a burning desire to read the emails or clean the sink or watch TV? So, yeah, I'm going to be on the journey as well, and I'm going to do the homework as well. So you can do the breathing meditation we did here, or even use apps. There's a lot of great apps for guided meditations. I use Smiling Mind. It's an Australian one. It's free. That's great. A 3-minute mindfulness. I just tap it. Less than 3 minutes actually when she finishes talking. And Headspace. It's a free app. I think there's 10 meditations that are free, but then you pay for the rest. But those 10 are pretty good. So you can just use an app and just press the button and someone talks, which is great. Or you can just do the breathing meditation. If you're short of time, just sit down, adjust your posture, then count 7 slow breaths and get up. That's it. Don't think about how you felt before or after if you haven't got the time. Just sit down, 7 breaths and get up. Just do that every day. And that's a bit of a circuit breaker for the craziness of life anyway. Just circuit break. And that won't break the habit, and that's what you're trying to form, a habit. There's also, I forgot to say, there's Wednesday morning guided meditations here at TI at 11 o'clock with an optional meet-up at Cafe Bliss after. So they run through a series of different types of meditations, which would be interesting. Okay, now with questions. Another teacher gives people the opportunity to write down their questions anonymously. So I've got paper and pens over there. I mean, not everybody might want to talk about their attachment questions publicly, so you can definitely write them there. If you feel like it, you can give me some feedback as well. I'm happy to adjust what I'm saying and stuff. So I've got pens and paper over there on the table. And then I'll address those questions next week. So I was hoping to have less time for questions, but here we are. So any questions, any examples of attachment you want to discuss, or any questions about meditation at all? I'll keep blathering on in a minute or two if nobody has any questions. Attachment to people, maybe objects is one that's less personal. Has anyone got any favourite item? I mean, what about shopping? I mean, I love clothes, and I know I may not be attached to my jewellery, but I'm attached to some of my clothes. Jane? Ballroom dancing. And what happens if you can't go to ballroom dancing? Yeah. And that's actually one way of working out if you're attached to something, that if you can't do it for whatever reason, and you get upset or sad, then you know that you most likely are attached to it. And that's just it. It's nothing's permanent. Things change. If the body's going or the knees are going. I love hiking, and I went on this hike last year, coast to coast in England, and Hadrian's Wall. Oh, fabulous hikes, but my knees were shot to pieces. So I was really worried I couldn't go hiking again. So I'm clearly attached to hiking, because if you can't do something and you're upset, the idea is to face things as they come. And not get upset. That's when you look deep and inward and get some strength and happiness. Yeah.
Very basic.
Please.
When you meditate, do you count the breathing in like 1, 2, 3?
Oh,
1, 2, 3.
some people do that actually. On one of my apps, they say to reduce stress, and I just did this last week. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 6, 7. 7. And when you reach the bottom, you can breathe in again. But that's not the way I was talking about it today. The basic breathing meditation, the way I do it is for one breath. It's one in breath and one out breath. That counts as one. Like 1, 2. That's the way I do it. And then you can have a cycle, like some people might do 3 breaths as one cycle and go 1, 2, oh wait a minute. Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3 and stop, and then 1, 2, 3. I go to 7. Some people go to 10. They say they count to 10 and then start again. And my partner said, well, why don't you just do, instead of 3 breaths, 3 cycles of 7, why don't you just count to 21? And I think the answer to that is you sort of lose count, right? Because you're not supposed to really, you've got to concentrate more on the breath than on the counting, right? Or you could set a timer, so you don't even have to think of the counting. And you could, but then sometimes sorry? Well, exactly. I mean, it's a process, right? You find out what's sort of comfortable. Some people, my partner uses a timer when he meditates. If I do that, I sometimes might get distracted. I find sometimes that when I'm actually counting, it helps to keep me a little bit more concentrated in some weird way. And especially if there's a little bit of a tram rolling by, then it brings me back. You and me both, yeah. It helps me do that too. But you just don't lose sight of the aim of why you're meditating. So whatever works for you, if the timer works, if the counting works. Sometimes a little bit of white noise, like I said, I can hear the rumbling of the tram, and then it sort of gets me back. I think, oh, I should be meditating, so. And setting up a place to sit, is everyone okay with that, if that's something you choose to do? So I think the point is, if it's nice and you make it nice and tidy, you want to go back there. If it's messy, it sort of reflects, you don't want to have a messy mind, so you want to have a nice, clear, tidy mind. So a nice, clear, tidy space. I obviously have to tidy, after saying that, I have to tidy my meditation space tonight, I think.
Health can be quite challenging to sort of separate that attachment from what is a sort of very naturally restoring thing.
So separating the attachment from...
Health and being able to do things.
Yeah, that's right. So... Have you got an example that you're thinking of?
Oh, I've recently sort of developed chronic fatigue.
Yep.
So all these things that I used to do, really love doing and really love sort of getting fit, I can no longer do.
Yep, that's like me with my walking and thinking that I couldn't do the knees. Definitely some attachment mixed in with that love and passion for doing it. but I don't know if understanding that helps you or not really. But it is definitely an example of how, if we're attached to something and we think that it's going to be like that forever, because you probably didn't think you were going to get chronic fatigue, that if we think that it's a great example of that things don't last forever the way that we'd like them to be. So we have to accept that things will change. There's that Christian saying about, someone help me about the grace of the things to accept the things that we had. That's it. Yeah. So because things will definitely change. So yeah, that would be attachment. Yeah, and it does change. I think it's hard to say just letting go, but we will be talking about that further later on, of how some things of maybe doing that. But the only thing I can think of is trying to find other things that you can transfer that enjoyment onto.
Well, here now.
Okay. Well, enjoying Buddhism and reading and stuff.
I've been attached to it.
You know what? They say that that's probably a good thing to get attached to. But then, of course, if you couldn't come anymore to teachings, then that's going to be upsetting too. But then that might motivate you to go somewhere else and find teachings, or to find a book and read if there wasn't that around. So, yeah. How many of you think you might try to sit down and count to 3 or count to 7 every day? Great. Wonderful. That's so good. Because it's something I initially really found hard. I mean, I actually came to Buddhism because I was going crazy and I thought I needed to get my mind together instead of going all over the place, and I thought that would calm me down. So it's quite ironic that I sort of got seduced into the intellectual side of it and sort of, for a time, neglected the meditation side of it. But there's no hope of advancing on the intellectual side if you don't meditate. I'm convinced of that. So, yeah. Oh, actually, we probably should... Oh, actually, any other questions or comments or stories about attachment? Remember that you can write some questions there, and I can address them next week. And as always with Buddhism, there's the dedication. So there has been some positive energy in coming here tonight, and some positive thoughts, I'm sure. And so we can dedicate you perhaps to the goals you had in coming here. I mean, why did you come here? You perhaps want to be a better person, have some tools in the toolbox to deal with life, to deal with friends, whatever your goals are. So you could say something, for example, I dedicate any positive energy I've created here tonight to becoming a better person, to understanding attachment more, to understanding how to find happiness in a more intelligent, wise, with wisdom. So may we all tread gently with our assumptions and our expectations and hold less tightly onto things. So I think that's like with hiking for me and the physical things you want to do. I mean, I'm holding on tightly to the trekking and the hiking, and I've got to loosen that grip, because one day I'm not going to be able to do it. It just comes sooner for you. Normally for you it would have been old age, but now it's sooner. So we've all got to cope with getting older and the body breaking down. And if we hold less tightly onto that, onto our youth, onto our fitness, onto our health, then that'll make it easier when these things happen. Okay, also I just wanted to let you know that Tara Institute has an Instagram account, Tara_Institute, and a Facebook account, and that does show what we do here, the activities. It gives a heads up on things that are coming up. Now, I normally the Monday night people go into the dining room. I mean, there is a cake there, and there's you can get a cup of tea. So please do that. But I'll be in the bookshop just for tonight, because on the first Monday of each month the bookshop is open, and I'm the volunteer bookshop person for Monday night. So if you want to chat with me, you can come to the bookshop and have a chat, but I will be in the dining room for the rest of the Monday nights. But Monday night the dining room is there, it's open, the cake is there, make yourself a cup of tea, come to the bookshop, come and have a look at the Monday night textbook, as I call it. It's great listening to the teachings, but it's really good to have some of the concepts here that you can look back on. And so in here, this is, what's it got? Got some good teachers here. Margie, she's so logical. She's so good. Creating positive states of mind. Jeremy talks about happiness comes from the mind. He's just recently came. He's very patient, very, very patient man. Ashvini, the intelligent way to be selfish. Brilliant teaching. Claire Callanan, transform your mind and find happiness within. So these are the sorts of things. Talks about the 6 perfections: generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom. Now, so she spoke about these things, but I'd want to actually have a book to actually look over it again. And there's meditations in here as well, a lot of breathing meditations that you can look at. The Dalai Lama's simple meditation tips. Dr. Alan Malloy, mental health and spiritual philosophy, and reducing anxiety and depression. So interesting, he's a medical doctor, but also decades in Buddhism, merging those two together. Alice Andrews, The Importance of Self-Compassion. Mark Fernandez, Meditate Your Way to Happiness. Kathy Edward, The 3 Higher Trainings, Morality, Concentration and Wisdom. Really interesting. Awareness, looking at our emotion, attachment, morality. I should have read that before I came here. I will read that tonight. And Damien, How Self-Cherishing Drives Our Discontentment. Damien will always have an interesting perspective on something. So, fascinating. Okay, I think that's probably it. So I'll open up the bookshop. Please write some questions down or comments or feedback. Please feel free to go in the dining room, and hopefully see you next week, and good luck with the meditation. Good night.